Saved an alien warrior, now she wants a human child. The frontier world of Karen's Reach was quiet again, but it was not peaceful. Broken ships floated above the planet like silent ghosts. The ground below was dark and scarred, covered in metal pieces, burned stone, and the remains of machines that no longer moved. The battle had ended hours ago, yet the air still felt heavy, as if the world itself remembered what had happened. A single human cruiser drifted carefully through the wreckage in low orbit. Its name was HSS Resolute. The ship did not come to conquer or claim land. It had come because of a weak, broken signal that should not have existed at all. Captain Elias Morgan stood on the bridge, hands behind his back, eyes fixed on the main screen. "Signal still active," said Lieutenant Harper from the sensor station. "Very weak, it's coming from the surface, one source." "One?" Morgan asked calmly. "Yes, sir." "No signs of power grids, cities, or active defenses, just one." Morgan frowned slightly. "That means someone is still alive." The bridge grew quiet. Most crews would have marked the coordinates, recorded the data, and moved on. Frontier space was dangerous and rescue missions often ended badly. But the Resolute was not most ships. "Prepare a ground team," Morgan said. "Medical unit included." Harper hesitated. "Captain, scans show recent combat, unknown alien forces. There could still be danger." Morgan nodded. "There is always danger. That's not a reason to leave someone behind." The order was given. The ship turned slowly and began its descent. The surface of Karen's Reach was cold and gray. The sky was filled with dust clouds, and the wind carried fine ash across the broken land. Human boots crunched softly as the rescue team moved forward in a tight formation. Sergeant Lena Perez led the team. She raised a fist, signaling a halt. "There," she said quietly. Ahead of them, half buried under twisted metal, was the source of the signal. At first, it looked like debris. Then it moved. Perez felt her breath catch. An alien warrior lay against the wreckage of a shattered transport craft. She was tall, even while lying down, with a powerful build shaped by years of battle. Her armor was cracked and burned, but still marked with symbols of rank and honor. One arm was badly injured, and dark blood had dried along the ground beneath her. Yet her other hand still gripped a weapon. Her eyes opened when the humans approached. They were sharp. Alert, unafraid, the alien tried to rise. "Easy," Perez said, raising both hands to show she meant no harm. "We're here to help." The warrior did not understand the words, but she understood the tone. She pushed herself up anyway, trembling with effort. Her injured leg failed her, and she nearly fell. Without thinking, Perez stepped forward and caught her. The alien froze. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. No enemy attack came, no sudden strike, just two beings from different stars standing in the ash of a ruined world. Slowly, the alien warrior allowed her weight to rest against the human. Her weapon fell from her hand. Then she collapsed. "Medical now?" Perez shouted. Inside the field medical shelter, lights flickered as equipment powered on. The alien warrior lay on a raised platform while human medics worked quickly and carefully. Dr. Annika Rao studied the readings with focused attention. "She's strong," Rao said. "Very strong. Her body is still trying to fight, even in this state." Captain Morgan stood nearby, watching silently. "Will she live?" he asked. Rao nodded. "Yes, if we got here even 10 minutes later, I wouldn't be so sure, but she's a survivor." The alien warrior stirred, letting out a low sound, not pain, but warning. Her eyes opened again. She saw unfamiliar walls, strange tools, beings with soft faces and steady movements. She tried to sit up. Morgan stepped forward slowly. "You're safe," he said, keeping his voice calm. "No one here will harm you." The translation system had not yet adapted to her language. She did not understand the words, but she understood something else. These beings had not taken her weapon as a trophy. They had not bound her. They had treated her wounds instead of ending her life. That confused her more than any enemy ever had. She watched them closely, every breath measured, every movement careful. When exhaustion finally pulled her back into sleep, her grip on awareness loosened, but not her sense of caution. Hours later, the alien warrior woke again. This time, the pain was dull instead of sharp. Her breathing was easier. Her body still felt heavy, but no longer broken. She opened her eyes and saw the stars. A wide viewing window filled one wall of the room, showing space stretching endlessly beyond. The ship moved smoothly, without the harsh vibrations of a battle craft. She realized then that she was no longer on Karen's Reach. She was on a human ship, A human stood nearby, sitting quietly, reading from a small device. Captain Morgan felt her eyes on him and looked up. "You're awake," he said. She studied his face. No threat display, no raised voice, just calm attention. She slowly sat up, testing her strength. Her body responded, though weakly. Morgan did not move closer. He gave her space. "My name is Elias Morgan," he said, placing a hand over his chest. "I command this ship." She understood the gesture, a leader identifying himself. After a moment, she did the same. "Caliph," she said, her voice rough but steady, "warrior of the Varkesh clans." The translator adjusted, soft tones playing as it learned her speech. Morgan smiled slightly. "It's good to meet you, Caliph." She did not smile back. "Why?" she asked. Morgan tilted his head. "Why what? Why save me?" Caliph asked. "I am not human. I am not your kin. This world was already lost." Morgan considered his answer carefully. "Because you were alive," he said at last. "And because leaving you there would have been wrong." Caliph stared at him. Among her people, rescue was earned by strength or loyalty. Mercy was rare. Risking lives for a stranger was nearly unheard of. Yet these humans had come into a battlefield after the fighting had ended. They had exposed themselves to danger for someone they did not know. She looked down at her hands. "Your kind is strange," she said. Morgan nodded. "We hear that a lot." Over the next few days, Caliph remained under medical care. Humans came and went, always respectful, always careful. No one treated her as a prisoner. No one spoke to her with fear or hatred. She watched them. Humans were not impressive at first glance. They were smaller than many warrior species. Their bodies showed signs of old injuries, fatigue, and emotional strain. Yet they worked without complaint. They laughed even after loss. They argued, then apologized. They remembered those who were gone and still moved forward. Caliph began to notice something deeper. Humans did not give up. Even when tired, they continued. Even when afraid, they stood their ground. Even when the odds were poor, they acted anyway. This confused her more than any battlefield tactic. One day, as Morgan stood with her near the viewing window, she spoke again. "You came when no one else did," she said. Morgan nodded. "We heard a call." "It was weak," Caliph said. "Many would have ignored it." "We didn't," Morgan replied simply. Caliph looked out at the stars. For the first time since the war began, she felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest. Not fear, not anger, hope. And somewhere deep within her thoughts, a question began to form, quiet now, but growing stronger with every passing moment. If humans could endure this much. The stars outside the window shimmered as the Resolute moved forward, carrying with it not just a rescued warrior, but the beginning of a story the galaxy was not ready for yet. Caliph lay quietly in the medical bay, watching humans move around her with calm precision. She had survived countless battles, faced creatures that could tear a person apart in seconds, and stood alone on worlds where the air itself burned the lungs. Yet here she felt something different, not fear, not hate, something foreign. The humans were patient. "Doctor." Rao moved closer, checking the healing progress of Caliph's injuries. "Your leg is almost fully functional," she said. "The tissue will strengthen in a few days. You may even walk without support soon." Caliph flexed her fingers, testing the strength in her hands. "Your technology is impressive," she admitted, "but it is not magic. I have seen worlds heal themselves naturally faster than this." Rao smiled lightly. "Medicine is only a tool. The will to live is what makes it work." Caliph considered this. She had seen many warriors die simply because they refused to move forward. Humans, by contrast, seemed to fight for life itself, even when the odds were against them. Captain Morgan entered the room quietly. "Caliph," he said, "we have prepared quarters for you on the ship. You will have privacy, food, and assistance as needed." Caliph raised an eyebrow. "Why? I am a stranger. My people are far away. You do not owe me anything." Morgan shook his head. "It is not about owing. It is about choice. You chose to survive, and we chose to help." The warrior's eyes narrowed slightly. "Most species would have left me to die, or worse, scavenged my body for profit. And yet we did not," Morgan replied. "Humans have strange ways, yes, but we believe life is worth protecting, even if it is not our own." Caliph remained silent, watching him. She had always measured strength in combat, in killing or surviving battles. But these humans measured strength differently. They measured it in endurance, in care, and in the courage to act even when nothing promised victory. Over the next week, Caliph adapted to life aboard the Resolute. She observed humans constantly, studying their movements, their patterns, their strange laughter, and the way they comforted one another. She noticed Lieutenant Harper repairing equipment that had been broken in the crash. Harper's hands were covered in oil and scratches, but his eyes never left the delicate circuits. He worked slowly, deliberately, correcting mistakes rather than rushing. Kalith recognized this patience as a kind of strength, though she did not yet understand it fully. One evening, she found Captain Morgan alone on the observation deck, staring at the stars. Kalith approached carefully. "You spend much time looking out there," she said. Morgan turned to her with a small smile. "It is important to remember why we move forward. These stars, they are not just lights. They are worlds, lives, futures." Kalith considered this. Her people had always fought for honor, for territory, for survival. Humans, she realized, fought for something more, something invisible yet unbreakable, hope. "You are unlike others," Kalith said finally. "Your people are not the strongest. You do not have the sharpest claws, nor the thickest armor, nor the deadliest weapons. Yet you survive and even help those who are not your own." "Why?" Morgan thought for a moment. "Because we choose to," he said simply. "We choose to fight, to protect, to endure. Strength is not always measured in power. Sometimes it is measured in will." Kalith's eyes softened. She had never heard a human speak so openly, so honestly, and yet she felt no doubt in his words. Days later, Kalith was allowed to walk outside on the ship's observation platform. The wind, artificial but strong, blew against her face. She had never stood on a human vessel before, felt the motion of the stars beneath her, or sensed the calm discipline of a crew working in harmony. Harper approached with a small tray of food. "You should eat," he said. "Your body needs energy." Kalith took the tray, though she had no real need for food like this. Her people were hunters, fighters. She was accustomed to surviving with very little, but she ate anyway, slowly, watching Harper. "Why do you care?" she asked finally. He shrugged. "Because it is the right thing, because we all survive better when we help one another. That is the human way." Kalith studied him. She had seen loyalty among soldiers before, but this was different. Humans did not demand payment for their loyalty. They did not threaten for obedience. They simply acted. That night, Kalith could not sleep. She lay in her quarters, listening to the hum of the ship, the quiet footsteps in the corridors, and the faint laughter of humans who lived, despite the darkness of the universe. Her mind kept returning to one thought. She had survived because of humans. Not because of her own strength, not because of weapons, but because someone had chosen to act when it was easier to leave her behind. And that choice had sparked something inside her. The next morning, Kalith requested to meet Captain Morgan. She wanted answers. "Sir," she said, once alone with him, "your people, you are not like others I have met. I have fought alongside many species. Some are cruel, some are selfish. Some are too weak to protect even themselves, but humans are different." Morgan listened carefully. Kalith continued. "You risked your lives for me, a stranger, someone who belongs to another species. Why?" Morgan's eyes were steady. "Because it was right. Because no life is worthless. Because surviving is not just about being strong, it is about what you choose to protect." Kalith's chest tightened. She had always measured herself against the strongest warriors, against the deadliest enemies. But humans were strong in a way she had never understood. "You fight for life, not for honor, not for territory, not even for glory," she said. "You fight because you will not give up." "Yes," Morgan replied. "That is what it means to be human. We fight not because we must, but because we choose to live and protect." Kalith looked down at her hands. Blood from the battlefield had been replaced with healing flesh. Pain remained, but it was manageable. She had survived because humans had chosen life over death for her. For the first time, she felt something she had never felt before, gratitude. As days passed, Kalith began training again, not for combat but for endurance. She learned to move alongside humans, to understand their strategies, their discipline, their ability to adapt. She sparred lightly with Harper, and to her surprise, she was challenged. Not by strength alone, but by ingenuity. Humans fought in ways that were unpredictable, flexible, and clever. Kalith began to respect them more than any warrior she had ever faced. And yet a question began to form, one that she could not ignore. If humans were so adaptable, so strong in ways her people could not understand, what could they accomplish together with her strength? What could they build? What could they protect? And then quietly, almost as a whisper to herself, Kalith wondered, if humans could endure so much, could they help her people survive too? One evening, Kalith stood once more on the observation deck. Stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass. Morgan joined her. "You are thinking about your people," he said softly. Calith nodded. They are fading, many are weak, few survive long enough to fight, I have watched. And yet humans, you endure, you survive, perhaps. She hesitated, unsure how to continue. Perhaps your kind can help ensure our survival too. Morgan looked at her carefully. If there is a way to help without harm, we will consider it, but survival cannot come at the cost of life or freedom. Calith studied him. She realized that humans not only survived, they thrived through choice, through morality, through hope. Her mind raced. Her people were warriors, strong in battle but fragile in other ways. Perhaps these humans, these strange, enduring creatures, could offer something her species had almost lost. And for the first time since the battlefield, Calith felt a strange excitement. Not for war, not for honor, but for something far more uncertain and powerful, a chance at hope. The Resolute moved forward in silence, carrying its passengers across the stars. One alien warrior, once broken and near death, now watched humans closely. She had survived. And she was beginning to believe that survival, when combined with human will, could change everything. Her mind returned to the questions she could not yet answer. And somewhere deep inside, she made a quiet decision. She would learn more about humans. She would understand their ways, and perhaps she would discover how their strength could help not only herself but her people. The stars continued to shine outside the observation window. The universe stretched wide, dangerous, and full of challenges. And Calith, the warrior who would not break, had finally found a new kind of battle to fight, not against enemies, but for the future. Calith had spent weeks aboard the Resolute, moving carefully through the corridors, observing humans and testing her own strength. She was recovering quickly, faster than any healer had expected. Her body had healed, but her mind was restless. Every day, she watched humans live with a quiet determination that puzzled and fascinated her. She had learned small things about them, how they laughed even after terrible losses, how they argued without hatred, and how they comforted each other in ways no one had ever comforted her. She noticed their ability to endure pain without giving up, their willingness to risk themselves for strangers, and their strange desire to protect life, even when it seemed pointless. Calith had fought alongside warriors of countless worlds. Most fought for honor, territory, or glory. Few had cared for life beyond themselves. Humans were different, and now she had a question she could no longer ignore. She approached Captain Morgan in his private quarters one evening. The room was quiet, lit by the soft glow of holographic displays. He was reviewing star maps, plotting the next course for the Resolute. "Captain," Calith said, her voice steady but careful, "I wish to speak about my people." Morgan looked up, giving her his full attention. "Of course, sit." Calith remained standing, as was her custom. She had not yet fully adapted to human customs of relaxation and leisure. "My people," she began, "are dying slowly. Generations pass without strong children. Our warriors are fewer, our leaders are fading. Soon we may vanish completely." Morgan listened silently, absorbing the weight of her words. "We are strong in battle," Calith continued, "but fragile in other ways. We have no one to carry us forward. I have observed humans for weeks. I have watched how you endure, how you protect, how you thrive even when everything is against you. Your species does not fear pain or hardship as my people do. You survive and you grow stronger because of it." Morgan nodded slowly. "I see." "You are saying humans could help your people survive?" Calith studied him carefully. "Yes, but not in the way of technology or weapons or strategies. Those are tools. I speak of life and of hope. Your strength is not in war alone, but in your choices. You endure when others would break. You protect when others would flee. You live fully even in the face of death. That is what my people need." Morgan remained silent. He had faced countless crises in the frontier. Entire worlds had fallen. Species had been wiped out before his eyes, but Calith's request carried a weight he had never encountered. She took a breath and spoke the words that would shock them all. "I wish for a human child." Morgan blinked. For a moment he thought he had misunderstood. "A child." Calith did not waver. "Yes, I wish for a human child to carry the hope of my people, a child who can inherit your resilience, your endurance, and your ability to protect life. One who could survive in ways my people cannot and help guide our species forward." The words hung in the air, heavier than the stars outside the window. Morgan struggled to find an answer. His mind raced through ethics, law, diplomacy, and biology. Calith's words were not a demand. They were a request born from desperation and from respect. You are asking something extraordinary, he said carefully. You are asking a human to offer life for your people. That is not a small matter. Calith's eyes met his. I do not demand it. I only ask. I would never force such a thing. But I have watched humans act with courage, with compassion. You saved me when you could have left me to die. You risked your lives for a stranger. That is why I ask you. I believe humanity may understand the value of survival beyond one's own species. Morgan leaned back in his chair. The weight of the request pressed down on him. He thought of the crew, the lives under his command, and the future of countless worlds. Calith was not asking for a conquest. She was asking for trust. And what if no human agrees? He asked softly. Then I will continue to fight for my people in other ways, Calith replied honestly. But I hope you see that this is not selfish. I am asking because my people cannot survive without hope. I am asking because I have seen humans give hope when it was needed most. The news of Calith's request spread slowly through the crew. Some were shocked, some confused, some deeply curious. Lieutenant Harper approached Morgan privately. Captain, it is unusual, he said. Even for humans, even for the frontier, asking for a child, it is not something we normally hear. Morgan nodded. I know, but Calith is not asking for herself. She is asking for her people. She is asking because she believes humans can endure where others cannot. That is the essence of her request, Harper frowned. And what if it is refused? She might see it as rejection. Then we explain, Morgan said firmly. But we do not dismiss her lightly. Humans do not refuse life when there is a way to help. Meanwhile, Calith continued her observation of humans. She saw young crew members training, older crew members repairing the ship, medics tending to injuries, and leaders making decisions under impossible pressure. Every action reinforced her belief. Humans were not the strongest in body alone, but in mind, will, and heart. She began to see possibilities she had never imagined. If humans could survive so fiercely, perhaps a child born from their strength could carry forward not just life, but hope for her dying species. Calith approached Dr. Rao quietly. Doctor, I have a question about humans, about life, about children. Rao looked up from her workstation. Yes, Calith hesitated. If humans offer life in this way, what is required? What must they give? Rao considered her words carefully. Life is never simple. A human child would require care, guidance, protection, love. It is not something that can be given lightly, but humans, they are capable of extraordinary dedication when they choose to act. Calith studied her face. Then perhaps they are capable of helping my people in ways I never imagined. Days passed in tense anticipation. Calith spent her time learning about human culture, their sense of morality, and their respect for life. She watched how they worked together, how they respected one another, and how they made sacrifices without expectation of reward. One evening, she approached Captain Morgan again. You understand my request is not easy, she said. I do not ask for this lightly. I only ask because I see what humans can endure, and I believe you are capable of giving hope where others cannot. Morgan nodded. We will consider it carefully. This is not a decision for one person alone. But know this, humans do not ignore suffering when there is a chance to act. That is what makes your request possible. Calith's expression softened. She had seen many species in her life, each proud and fierce in its own way. None had inspired her as humans had. They did not survive because they were strongest. They survived because they chose life every day, even when it seemed impossible. Her heart, a place she had long considered hardened and unfeeling, stirred. Hope was dangerous, fragile, and unpredictable. But Calith had never before felt the kind of hope that humans inspired. Finally, Calith stood on the observation deck, watching the stars stretch endlessly beyond the Resolute. She thought of her people, scattered across dying worlds. She thought of the warriors who had fallen, the leaders who had disappeared, and the children who would never be born. She thought of humans, strange, small, fragile, yet unbreakable, and the choice they had made simply by saving her life. A quiet determination filled her chest. She had asked for something extraordinary, something that might change the future. And now she would wait as she had learned to do with humans, for in them she had seen the impossible become real. And in the stars beyond the window, she saw a path for her people that had never existed before. The galaxy was full of danger, darkness, and despair. But aboard the Resolute, in the presence of humans, Calith felt something powerful stir, the possibility of life, hope, and a future not yet written. She did not yet know the outcome of her request. She did not yet know if humans would accept the responsibility she asked for. But she knew one thing. She would fight for her people until the last star faded, and if humans could help, then the universe itself would take notice. The Resolute sailed silently among the stars, carrying its passengers forward. One alien warrior, once near death, had now asked for a chance at life, not for herself, but for her species. And humanity, as always, would face the choice: to endure, to protect, and to act, even when the request seemed impossible. News of Calith's request spread quickly, first among the crew of the Resolute, and then through official channels to human leadership and the alien authorities who monitored frontier space. The message was simple but shocking. An alien warrior, rescued from near death, had requested a human child to help preserve her species. For most, the idea was incomprehensible. Humans were expected to follow law, tradition, and caution. They were expected to protect their own first. Yet Calith's words carried a weight that was impossible to ignore. She did not demand, she requested. She did not threaten, she did not manipulate, she asked quietly for life. Captain Morgan stood before the human council, the holographic image of Calith's world projected behind him. Advisors, diplomats, and commanders from many sectors filled the chamber. "Captain Morgan," said Ambassador Tall, voice formal but curious, "your report is extraordinary. You are suggesting a human might give life to another species." Morgan nodded. "It is not about giving life for selfish reasons. Calith's request is about survival and hope. She asks for a human child because she believes humans can endure and protect in ways her species cannot." There were murmurs throughout the council. Some looked skeptical, others fascinated. Dr. Rao stepped forward, her voice calm. "We have studied Calith's people. They are warriors, resilient and intelligent, but their population is declining. Her request, while unusual, is not made lightly. She seeks continuity for her species, not personal gain." A diplomat shook his head. "Even if her intentions are honest, the risks are immense. Raising a child in a mixed environment, across species, the biological, cultural, and political consequences are unpredictable." Morgan's expression remained firm. "Sometimes the greatest risk is not taking action. Humans understand danger, uncertainty, and responsibility. But we also understand hope." Calith's own people were represented through a holographic projection. Though far from the council, her presence was strong. She spoke with clear authority, her voice steady and commanding, yet filled with quiet passion. "My people face extinction," she said. "We fight, we endure, but we are fragile in ways humans are not. You saved my life, and you have shown me the power of choice, courage, and protection. I do not ask for conquest, for control, or for domination. I ask for a chance at survival, a chance to preserve hope for generations to come." The chamber fell silent. Every person present felt the weight of her words. Among the humans, opinions varied. Some saw the request as an opportunity to demonstrate the best of humanity. Others feared the unknown, unsure if such a choice could be safe, ethical, or even legal. One counselor stood, a sharp-eyed strategist named Commander Vance. "Captain Morgan," he said, "do you truly believe a human can make such a decision? A child is not a tool, nor is life a bargaining chip. What assurance do we have that this arrangement will be ethical?" Morgan met his gaze. "We have no assurance, Commander, only choice, but humans have always chosen hope, even when impossible. We choose to act for life when it is most fragile. That is who we are." Calith stepped forward, her holographic image towering above the chamber. "I do not ask for a guarantee, I only ask for trust. Humans saved me when the battle had ended, when it would have been easier to leave me behind. I ask for the same courage now. Trust is the greatest strength a species can offer." The room was heavy with tension. The alien diplomats whispered among themselves. The human counselors exchanged glances, debating the morality, feasibility, and consequences. Finally, Ambassador Tall spoke. "This request is unprecedented, yet I sense sincerity, and there is a lesson to be learned. Perhaps the question is not whether humans can say yes. Perhaps the question is whether we are willing to uphold hope as a principle, even when it is inconvenient, risky, or difficult." Morgan returned to the Resolute after the council session. Calith met him in the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before them, silent witnesses to the decisions being made. "You spoke well," Calith said softly. "Do you believe they will agree?" Morgan shook his head. "I do not know, but I know this: humans will consider it because life is worth considering." Hope is worth considering, and sometimes that is all that is needed to begin a change that no one could predict. Caliph nodded. Then I will wait. I have waited for centuries for my people. I can wait for humans too. Back at the council, debate continued late into the night. Legal experts discussed the implications of cross-species care. Biologists outlined potential genetic and environmental challenges. Ethicists spoke of consent, responsibility, and morality. But through it all, one idea remained constant. Humans had a choice, and choice itself was powerful. Finally, after long deliberation, the council reconvened. Morgan stood before them once more, this time with Caliph's presence beside him. "Counselors," he said, voice calm but firm, "this is not a decision about power or law. This is a decision about life, about hope. Caliph's request is not for herself alone, it is for her people. And it is not impossible. Humans endure, humans protect. Humans choose to act when others would do nothing. This is the moment we decide what humanity truly stands for." The chamber was quiet. Every being present understood the gravity of what was about to be decided. Ambassador Tall finally spoke. "The decision is clear. If there are humans willing to step forward to give life in this way, they shall be allowed. And the request shall be treated with respect, care, and oversight. It will not be forced. It will not be coerced. But it will be possible. That is the ruling of this council." A wave of relief and awe passed through Caliph's projection. Her expression softened. "Thank you," she said simply. "I do not ask for more than this. I only ask for life and the chance to preserve hope." Morgan looked at her, silently impressed by her courage. "We will find a way," he said. "If humans are willing, we will make it work." Back aboard the Resolute, Caliph watched the crew move through their routines. Harper repaired equipment with meticulous care. Dr. Rao tended to the sick and injured. Morgan coordinated missions and trained the crew. Caliph realized then that hope was not a word. It was action. It was endurance. It was the quiet courage to act when nothing guaranteed success. She felt a sense of peace she had not known in centuries. She had asked for something extraordinary, and humans had responded not with fear or anger, but with consideration. They had not promised life, yet they had promised something more important: respect for her choice and willingness to endure the responsibility of hope. Her mind turned again to her people, scattered across dying worlds. One child, raised with human resilience and her species' strength, could change the course of their future, could give them life when the stars seemed set against them. Caliph stood on the observation deck, eyes fixed on the horizon where the stars met the void. She whispered softly, more to herself than anyone else, "Perhaps the galaxy is not as hopeless as I once believed." And so the Resolute sailed on. The crew prepared for challenges ahead. Humans and an alien warrior had begun a journey that no one could fully understand, a journey that would test courage, trust, and the strength of hope. The Council's ruling allowed the possibility. It did not solve everything. It did not guarantee life, but it gave choice. And choice, Caliph realized, was more powerful than any weapon. For the first time in centuries, she saw a future in which her people might endure. And that vision, fragile as it was, shone brighter than any star in the void. The galaxy watched in silence, unaware that the seeds of something extraordinary were being planted aboard a human ship, in a corridor filled with quiet courage, hope, and determination. The Resolute moved silently through the stars. The galaxy stretched wide before it, dark, dangerous, and full of possibilities. On board, the air was calm, but beneath the surface, tension and hope mixed in ways no one could ignore. Caliph walked the corridors with quiet confidence. Her body was healed, her strength returned, and her mind was sharper than ever. But the request she had made, extraordinary and unprecedented, hung over her like a star waiting to be born. Captain Morgan met her on the observation deck. The stars reflected in his eyes as he studied her. "Caliph," he said, "the Council has approved the possibility, but it will not happen unless someone steps forward willingly. Humans must choose. There is no coercion, no force." Caliph nodded. "I do not ask lightly. I have seen humans endure, protect, and act in ways that inspire hope. That is why I ask now. I will wait as long as it takes." Morgan studied her. He had faced countless crises in frontier space, but never had a choice carried so much weight. To bring life into a universe already filled with danger, to unite two species in such a personal way, this was more than strategy. This was courage in its purest form. Days passed as discussions spread among the crew. Medical teams prepared for every scenario. studying the biological differences between humans and Calith's people. Ethical committees debated how best to ensure the safety of a child raised between two species. And then, quietly, a young officer named Lieutenant Harper stepped forward. "I will do it," he said simply when Morgan asked if anyone was willing. I do not know everything it will require, but I know humans endure. I know we protect life. And I know this child could give hope to a species that deserves to survive." Calith's eyes widened. She had expected caution, fear, hesitation, but not this willingness, courage beyond measure. She bowed her head slightly in gratitude. "You are brave," she said. "Braver than many I have seen in battle." Harper shook his head. "I do not feel brave, I feel responsible, and I cannot ignore the chance to do something meaningful." Morgan nodded. "Then we proceed carefully. This will not be easy. But if humans can endure danger, hardship, and uncertainty, we can endure this too." Preparations began. Calith's people were informed, and a small delegation came aboard the Resolute to observe and ensure the process respected their traditions. Humans and aliens worked together, blending knowledge, wisdom, and care. Calith trained alongside Harper, not in combat, but in endurance, patience, and trust. She showed him how her people nurtured young ones, how they passed knowledge without words, and how they built resilience. Harper, in turn, taught Calith about human compassion, emotional strength, and adaptability. The weeks passed with quiet cooperation. Tensions occasionally flared, cultural differences, disagreements, and fear of the unknown, but the humans and aliens slowly learned to respect one another. Each action, each choice, each compromise built the foundation for something greater than survival, a future forged together. One evening, Calith and Morgan stood on the observation deck watching the stars. The ship's lights reflected softly around them. "Do you think they understand?" Calith asked. "Who?" Morgan replied. "The humans, my people, the galaxy," she said. "Do they understand what we are creating?" Morgan smiled faintly. "Not yet. Some may never fully understand, but that does not matter. What matters is that we act. Humans do not wait for understanding before choosing hope. That is why they endure." Calith nodded. She thought of the warriors who had fallen, the leaders who had vanished, and the children who had never been born. She thought of Harper, who had stepped forward without hesitation. And she realized that hope was no longer fragile. It was alive, and it was strong. The day finally arrived. Calith and Harper were ready. The medical teams and delegates were in place. The council's oversight ensured that every precaution had been taken. Calith looked at Harper. "Are you certain?" she asked. Harper nodded. "I am certain. Not because I understand everything that will happen, but because I know this is the right choice. Life is worth protecting. Hope is worth giving." Calith's expression softened. She had never seen such determination, such courage, such trust. "Then let us begin," she said. Weeks turned into months. Calith and Harper worked together, guided by both human science and Varkesh tradition. The child grew, nurtured in a way that honored both species. The child's eyes reflected the resilience of humans and the strength of Calith's people. The crew of the Resolute watched with wonder and pride. They had seen countless battles, worlds lost and won, species rise and fall. But never had they witnessed the creation of life as a bridge between species, a living symbol of hope. Calith spent time teaching the child her language, her culture, and her sense of resilience. Harper taught compassion, curiosity, and the human ability to endure and adapt. Together, they built something greater than either could alone, a new beginning. The child's first steps were watched not just by the crew, but by both human and alien delegates. Calith and Harper stood side by side, hands joined loosely, smiles wide and quiet. "This child," Calith whispered, "is more than survival. They are hope. They are the future." Harper nodded, "And they will carry the best of both worlds." For the first time since she had been rescued, Calith felt a sense of peace. She had asked for something extraordinary, something that many would have called impossible. And humanity, true to its nature, had chosen to endure, to protect, and to act. The stars outside the observation window stretched endlessly. The galaxy remained vast and dangerous. But aboard the Resolute, life had won, not through conquest or domination, but through courage, trust, and hope. Calith looked at the child, then at Harper, then at the stars. She whispered softly, "Perhaps the universe is not as dark as I believed." Morgan approached quietly. "It is not dark, not when humans and allies choose to act, even when the odds are impossible. That is the truth of our kind." Calith nodded. Then the future is ours to shape. And so the Resolute sailed on. Humans and Calith's people were united by choice, trust, and a shared vision. A new life had begun, a child who would grow to carry both strength and resilience, hope and courage across the galaxy. The journey had not been easy. The risks had been great. The consequences uncertain. But humanity had endured as it always did, and had shown the galaxy the power of choice, the power of hope, and the power of life. In that moment, Calith understood something she had never known in centuries of battle. Strength was not measured in weapons or victories. It was measured in will, in courage, and in the willingness to protect life when it mattered most. And humanity, she realized, was strongest in that way of all. The stars shone brighter that night, as if the universe itself recognized the promise of a future forged together. Hope had survived, and it would endure as long as humans chose to act.